Hello everyone. Welcome to Factora's March community event. My name is Liz. I am the community manager here at Factora. I am coming to you from sunny Tampa, Florida. We are finally getting consistent days in the mid 70s and perfect beach weather. I would love to know where everyone else is calling in from. So if you have a second, introduce yourself in the chat and your location so we can get to know each other better. Community events like this one are done once a month at Factora to allow us to reach more women when it comes to financial education. We do cover a variety of financial topics, so be sure to check back on our events page frequently to see if there's any other upcoming events that pique your interest. If today is your first Factora event, we welcome you graciously and thank you so much for joining us. For those who don't know us yet, Factora is a personal finance education company that teaches women everywhere how to invest and build wealth. We are on a mission to lead 1 million women to $1 million of net worth, and we do that through our 12-week live online investment course called the Wealth Circle. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's topic, how to do a 401k rollover and stop leaving money on the table. There is so much to look forward to when you start a new job at a new company. You have a new paycheck, new colleagues, a new title, new benefits. But what happens to that old 401k from your previous employer? Forgetting about it could be costing you thousands of dollars. Knowing how to handle your old 401k is the key to making sure that you are making the most out of every dollar you earned at that previous job, and to be sure that you have as much money as possible in your accounts when it comes to retirement. Now, remember, if you have any questions during the event, please just pop them in the chat and we will do our best to try to get to all of them at the end. With that, I want to pass it over to Factora's founder and CEO, Allegra. Take it away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this event. I love seeing so many Factora women here, so many new names here. Y'all are calling in from all over today, and we're really excited to be talking to you about something so significant when it comes to wealth building. We all know it's important to have really strong retirement accounts set up and working for us, and so having an employer-sponsored 401k is a huge part of your compensation packages. And of course, we all tend to move around and switch jobs way more than it used to be in the past. I know we talk to parents who may have had one employer for their whole career, but things are so different nowadays. So the average American is switching jobs every 4.2 years, which means there's a lot of opportunities to leave 401k behind. And we don't want forgotten money. We want to be wealthy women. So I'm Allegra Brandley, founder and CEO of Factora, where we teach women how to be so smart with their money and build great financial systems. And with that, I want to turn it over to Capitalize. We're so excited to have Jackie here today, who I was just getting the deets from. She's lived all over New York. I also had my New York heyday before I moved here to Austin, Texas. So Jackie, welcome. Tell us everything we need to know about 401ks and not losing out on money, because isn't it true that there are 28 million forgotten about 401k plans totaling something in the 1.5 trillions?
It's pretty staggering. It's pretty wild, actually, and we will get into all of that. So thanks, Allegra, so much for the introduction and for having me. And hello, everyone. It's really great to be here. So again, I'm Jackie Barrett. I head new initiatives at Capitalize. And actually, let me get on to here so you can see what I look like. I head new initiatives at Capitalize, and my team here works with many of our partners, including Factora. For some background, I've spent the last decade plus in finance or fintech, and I'm so happy to, one, be partnering with Factora, which is an incredible organization, and two, to be here today to talk about the importance of understanding your options as it relates to old 401ks, because saving for retirement, as Allegra and Liz mentioned, is such an important item on our financial to-do lists and an item that you can't get started on soon enough. So thanks for having me. So we're going to start with the basics today and then talk through the solution that Capitalize offers and if it's right for you through our partnership with Factora. But the goal here really is to arm you with the information you need to make a sound financial decision as it relates to your old retirement accounts. So to get started, we will cut through the jargon here. So there's a ton of lingo in the retirement world, in the financial world generally, as you all know. But when it comes to retirement accounts, here are kind of the key items to understand. So first is the 401k. The 401k is a tax-advantaged retirement account. It's offered to employees by their employer, generally in the private sector. And this is the most common type of retirement account out there. There are also 403Bs and 401As. These are kind of the sister to the 401k. These are also tax advantage accounts, but for employees generally in the nonprofit or public sector. So any teachers out there in the audience, as an example, you'll probably have this type of retirement account. 457s are yet another type of tax advantage account. They're generally offered to governmental employees by their employers. And those really cover the 4 accounts that make up the employer-sponsored retirement account segment. The other category that we have here is individual retirement accounts, which is known as an IRA, and those do not need to be offered by an employer. So anyone can go out and open one as a way to save for retirement. And frankly, even if you have an account sponsored by your employer, an IRA is a great option to have as well to pair with that employer-sponsored account as a way to really maximize the way that you're saving for retirement, which we'll talk through. In terms of IRAs, there are traditional IRAs, and then we have what is known as Roth IRAs. And the difference here is really in tax treatment. So Roth IRAs are slightly less common, and they do require post-tax contributions. And what this means is it allows you to avoid taxes later on when you are actively withdrawing from the IRA. So because of how common employer-sponsored plans are, right, many of us have old 401ks, 403Bs, 457s, et cetera, hanging around. There are a few things that you should understand that you can do with them. The first is cash them out. If you do this before retirement, though, you will be subject to some pretty hefty tax penalties. Number 2, you can leave your plan exactly where it is and choose to do nothing at all. Number 3, you can move it into a new plan. So an example here is if you've taken a job at a new employer who has a new 401k as an example, and you're leaving an employer that had a 401k as well, you can move that 401k into your new employer's 401k plan. And then lastly, but importantly, you can move your old plan into an IRA also, and we'll talk about why you might want to do that on the very next slide. So there are a number of reasons why an IRA may be a good option in terms of vehicle to consolidate your old accounts and manage them. One, when you are offered an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, you don't actually get to pick the provider. So as an example, if your employer offers a 401k through Fidelity, and Fidelity is a really big 401k provider, I'm sure as many of you know, you didn't actually select Fidelity, your employer did. With an IRA, you can pick the provider and how your money is invested. And typically, I'd say IRA providers have more options in terms of what you can actually invest in. And so like the TLDR here, this is all to say you have complete control of your money in an IRA. Number 2, show of hands, even if we can't see them, who here knows what fees you're paying in your old 401k account, or frankly, even your current 401k? And I'll pause for you to think about that. I can tell you that I am not raising my hands. Most people have absolutely no idea. When you roll your old 401k into an IRA, you can easily compare the fees charged by the IRA provider. You can vet the IRA provider and really proactively pick a fee structure that you are, 1, aware of, and 2, completely comfortable with. And that's a really important one because you've worked really hard for every dollar that you've earned and then put that away in savings as you should have. And so it's absolutely worth knowing what fees you're being charged on those dollars. And then 3, because of all of these reasons, consolidating into an IRA can give you what we call peace of mind. It's like crossing a huge to-do list off or to-do item off of your list. You've taken control of your retirement savings in a much more proactive way. So now that we've talked about IRAs, we can talk about kind of the considerations of doing a rollover. Not because it's always the best decision, but most people do leave their old retirement accounts behind. And some of the stats on here Allegra was referring to. So another show of hands, again, even though we can't see them, how many people have left a job and left their old 401k or 403b, etc., or other kind of account behind? This time, my hands are absolutely up in the air. This happens so often. Allegra mentioned this. There's 28 million 401ks out there in the abyss left behind with old employers. And this represents $1.6 trillion that people have, again, put away, they've saved for, they've earned these dollars, and now they are leaving them behind in accounts that their old employers picked for them. So that's pretty staggering when you think about it. And the reason that most people do this is because the rollover process can be really, really tricky. And just some background here actually on the 401k. So the 401k as a product was established back in the 1970s. And the thought at that point was that people would stay in a single job for the majority of their career. And obviously that has changed abundantly, pretty significantly. But an easy way to keep track of and consolidate the 401ks you accumulate over time was never actually established along with the 401k product. And so it can be a pretty painful process to do this on your own, which we'll talk about as well. So aside from what we'll go over, kind of the administrative tasks associated with the rollover, there are also just a few things about rollovers that are really, really important to know. So the first is that when you do a rollover, most 401k providers will send you a check for the amount that you're rolling over. That in and of itself is actually a pretty scary thing, to get a check in the mail for some large balance. Very important, you need to take action with that check within a 60-day time period. Because if not, the IRA actually assumes that you're keeping that cash versus reinvesting it towards your retirement, and they will make you pay taxes on that. So super important that you, in a timely way, take care of the check that you receive. The second is you need, whenever you're rolling funds, to have the same, wherever you're rolling funds into needs to have the same tax status as the 401k that you're taking from. So what that means is if you have a traditional 401k, you want to roll those funds into a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA. And actually, we'll talk about that. Because if you don't, if you change that tax type, there's going to be a tax consequence. The third, related to the point I just made, is that you actually can convert from traditional to Roth, but you're changing your tax status, and just be very, very aware that doing this, it's called a Roth conversion. Doing this intentionally will come with a tax consequence. So you want to be, completely prepared for that. And then lastly here, you can roll over into an IRA and have your IRA be funded, but you then have not actually completed the full process. You need to actually invest those dollars. You can pick to do this based on your IRA provider, and you can do it generally yourself, which is referred to as self-directed. Or you can have help picking the way you invest, which is generally referred to as a robo-advisor. And there are plenty of IRA options that fall into either or both of those categories. So considering all the nuances here, when you decide that a rollover is the right option for you, this is where Capitalize can help and why we've partnered with Factora. So a little bit about Capitalize. We're a fintech company based in New York, and we were the first to build a digital rollover experience. And we really exist because the rollover process is administratively difficult. It's unnecessarily nuanced, as we just talked through. But again, a really important step in saving for retirement and managing your retirement savings proactively. So we help you do this in a few easy steps if you decide that doing a rollover is the right thing for you. You'll hear me mention this a few times. We do have a special URL for individuals coming to us from Factora. So I'll mention it a bunch, just preparing you for that. But if you are someone who decides that rolling over is right for you and you're ready to do that, the link that you should use is app.highcapitalize.com/P/Factora. So in terms of how it works, the first thing that we would do is help you find your old 401k or your old retirement account. You may know where your old retirement account is. If so, that's great. If not, which is often the case, you can simply provide us with the name of your old employer, and then we'll digitally go and find your old 401k in a matter of seconds. Important thing here is that when you leave a job and leave your 401k behind, your employer has the right to change 401k provider. So just because you left a job and your 401k provider at the time was Fidelity, they may have moved to Vanguard or Principal or T. Rowe Price, and you may not actually know that. And so that's why it's helpful to simply track down kind of where your 401k is and who your provider is. Once we know that where your 401k is, we'll then ask if you have an IRA to move it into. And if you don't, that's totally fine. We have a bunch of IRA providers on a marketplace. And what we do is provide you with information on each provider. We'll provide you with their fees and other information that's kind of important for you to make a decision that is informed and right for you. Once we know where the funds are actually going, so that means you've picked an IRA, we'll help you with the actual rollover. So importantly, every single 401k provider has a different set of requirements, and that's what makes the process so tricky. There's no rollover that is exactly the same as some other rollover. We know all the requirements. We know the easiest way to get the rollover done, and we have an amazing team of experts who can kind of help you through that process. In some cases, providers do require phone calls, and in that circumstance, we'll actually call the provider for you and just conference you into the call when we have a rep on the phone, and then guide you through how that call should go. So our goal here, again, is if you decide that a rollover is right for you, to make that process as easy as possible so that you can get through it and get back to what's most important, which is doing the actual saving for retirement. This service is completely free to you through our partnership with Factora. Again, if it's the right decision for you, we have a team of experts who can help answer your questions. We'll keep you posted on, the status of your rollover as you're going through the process. And then again, we do all the heavy lifting, and you won't pay anything at all for that service. I won't linger here. Sometimes we hear, that's too good to be true. We encourage you to check out our Trustpilot reviews. We take a lot of pride in the service that we provide. We are a mission-driven company, so we're really here to serve our customers and our partners and make sure that you have a good, easy experience. So I am here for any questions. I'll note that if your question is really specific, really personal, you can also email Capitalize at partnerships@highcapitalize.com. But if you are, again, someone who decides that a rollover is the right course of action for you and you're ready to get started with that process, the link that you would use is app, which is app.highcapitalize.com/P/Factora, and you can get started in just a few minutes. But again, here to take any questions and very happy to clarify anything that we went through today.
Thank you, Jackie. Well, first thing I realized is that we didn't even tell you that Jackie came to speak to us, even though she is not feeling well and sick, and that is why her camera is off. So just so you guys know, we're really grateful to have her here, and we want to take all of your questions because Factora is all about education and understanding what you should be doing with your money. Retirement accounts are a huge part of that, and it's always dependent on you. The thing I say constantly is personal finances are just that. They are personal to you and your specific situation. But one of the things we have learned from so many women who've gone through the Factora Wealth Circle is that there are a lot of orphan 401ks and other retirement accounts that are causing a lot of just stress and overwhelm, knowing that something needs to be done about them, but not sure what to do. So I really appreciate how Jackie shared the different 4 options. Maybe if we can go back to that slide. But also the reasons why a rollover into an IRA can be so beneficial, because now you're in control of the fees. You have full control over what are the underlying investments, and you can put it with the rest of your IRA money. So Let's get into some questions. Liz, do you want to serve us up a few?
Yes. So what if you have one you forgot about for a couple of years? Can it still be rolled over?
Absolutely, it can be. Yeah. As I mentioned, oftentimes an employer will change providers. I actually believe that employers change providers every 3 years on average. That's totally fine, regardless of when you left an employer, left a 401k or other retirement account behind. You can track that down. You can use Capitalize to do that, but you can absolutely track that down and then kind of take the right course of action with it.
Jackie, if they weren't using Capitalize to track it down, what is the best course of action to figure out where that 401k, what provider it's now with?
Great question. So the first would be you can go back to your employer directly. You can find generally an HR email address and reach out to them and ask what provider they're using. The other is that every employer who offers a retirement plan needs to fill out something called a Form 5500, and those are all online. So you can search for your old employer's Form 5500. And on that document, it should have the 401k provider or other provider that they're using.
Okay, great. Because I saw a lot of women in the chat worrying that stuff that has been ignored for a few years is gone forever, and that's not the case. You just got to track it down. Okay, what else, Liz?
People are wondering, how is this service free for them to use, which I think is important for us to share with them.
Totally. Yeah, we definitely want to be transparent with anyone that's coming to capitalize on that. So we have a marketplace of IRA providers. I mentioned we have a bunch of different providers on there, and they range from kind of newer IRA providers to legacy names like an E-Trade that you'd be very familiar with. When someone opens an IRA off of that marketplace, the IRA provider pays us a referral fee. Not all do, some do. And because of that, on the back end, we don't need to charge for individuals who are coming to use our service to consolidate and save for retirement. So we're charging the provider and not the customer for this.
So effectively, you guys are brokers. You're brokering the person who has the old 401k into a new IRA.
That's right. We're a matching service, really. And then we take on kind of the work of the rollover as well.
Great.
Awesome. Is it a bad time to roll over while the market is down? Is it better to wait until the market recovers?
That's a really good question. Now, I'll start by saying, because I have to, that I'm not a financial advisor. But the reality is that if you're saving for retirement, for most people, that time horizon is probably long. And it may not be, right? You might be looking to retire in the next few years. But if it's a few or several years out and something you're doing again for the long term, there's going to be ebbs and flows in the market. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that right now is the wrong time to be consolidating and taking the right actions to, over the long term, save for retirement.
I'll go ahead and follow on that question because it's everything we do here at Factora. We also are not financial advisors, but we are very focused on investment education. And if you understand the fundamentals of investing and you understand time horizons, how the stock market works, the power of compounding, your risk profile, and you have a strategy for investing, there is typically never a bad time to make sure that your money is working for you, especially if your money is already in a old 401k account somewhere else. And to Jackie's point, getting hit with fees that you might not understand, putting it into an IRA where you have more control over the fees and the underlying selections actually gives you a lot more opportunity than you have when you can no longer contribute and it's just sitting there doing whatever it's doing based on the last selections that you could make when you were employed with that company a long time ago.
Great. How does it work with annual contribution limits of $6,000 or $6,500 and then a big rollover contribution? I think this person is touching on the IRA contribution limits for 2022 and 2023. So do rollovers impact those contribution limits?
So the IRA contribution limit did go up from 2022 to 2023. For rollovers specifically, there's actually not a limit as to how much you can roll into an IRA from a 401k, which is great.
Yeah, so that's really a two-part question. Every year, there is so much that you can contribute to your IRA for that year, but we are talking about past stuff. So you did past contributions to a 401k that you're just rolling over into, I don't even know if we've stopped to say IRA means an individual retirement account. So you are just taking it from an employer-sponsored account framework to one that is in your control. And so any amount can be rolled over, and that's not going to count against what you might contribute in addition for that calendar year, which in 2022 was a $6,000 max, and in 2023 is a $6,500.
Great. If you want to roll over a 401k, is the only option to roll it over into an IRA, or can you roll it over a 401k to another 401k account? I don't know if it would be helpful to bring up the slide with different options just so we can show those again.
Yes, I think this is the slide. You absolutely can roll it into a new 401k, and that may be the best option for you based on the specifics of your 401k plan. So generally what you'd be looking at, and please Allegra chime in, but generally what you'd be looking at is kind of the fee structure, investment options, etc. And if your new employer has a 401k plan that has fees that, are agreeable to you, that you're comfortable with, and investment options that you're also comfortable with, relative to the fees you could pay on an IRA, it might be the best move to go 401k to 401k versus 401k to IRA. Absolutely.
And Jackie, do you have any stats about how much average fees are with 401k that are employer sponsored?
I don't. That's such a good question, Allegra, but certainly something we could follow up with.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about it, and don't quote me, people, but it is usually over 1%. And so, for example, if you have a 401k where the fee for it is 1% before you're even talking about the underlying investments and the fees that you are paying for the funds, which would have expense ratios or the individual items in there, if the institution allows you to invest outside of funds and into individual stocks, for example, then there's those fees on top of it. So the reason that an IRA can be very alluring to people is because you remove that 1% or more fee off the top that is typically associated with company 401ks. And it makes sense, right? An employer is paying a financial institution to run and be their 401k provider. So they are charging the company that, which the company then passes on to you. So you get access to the account, but they're typically more expensive. And so when you leave that employer and you're not necessarily there able to contribute or getting a match, that is why a lot of people like to use an IRA where they have full control over the investment selections and how much the fees are.
Does Capitalize offer the full marketplace of IRAs or only a select number that you have agreements with?
Great question. So if you have an existing IRA, we'll help you move your funds into your existing IRA regardless of where that IRA is. We're happy to help you with that. If you're looking for a brand new IRA, we do have, I believe the number is about 10 right now, 10 providers on our marketplace where you can go open an account with them, and then we'll help you transfer the funds into that new IRA. But again, for existing, we'll help you move into any IRA that you might have.
So follow-up question, if I had, for instance, a Charles Schwab brokerage account already, and I wanted to open up an IRA there and then ask Capitalize to do the rollover for me, could I do it in that order?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so basically you guys will help people move into any IRA of their choosing, but you also, if they don't know which one they want to select, have options.
Exactly. Allegra, you put it better than I did. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Factora is really big on being agnostic about what financial services and products people use. We just always want to give women the education and the access to what's out there and what is seamless, which, let me tell you, from someone who's done a lot of rolling over of 401k accounts in my life, it is a headache to be calling Fidelity and asking left, right, and center question and making sure the paperwork's done. So what's so exciting about Capitalize is there is a seamless experience where they are charging the provider and not you.
Can you roll over your 401k even if you are staying at the company?
That's a great question. So if you are actively contributing to a 401k at the employer where you are currently employed, you can't roll over that 401k. For any old retirement account, you can absolutely take action on those accounts and roll them into, again, an IRA or your new 401k, etc. But in service, because you are currently employed, that 401k you cannot roll over until you've left the company.
So when we're calling them old, we mean that you no longer work at that company. So in that event, you have the ability to take that, because it is your retirement account. You have the ability to move it to somewhere of your choosing, either the new 401k or an IRA, or leave it there, but you can't contribute.
Can you talk about the implications of a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA? So I think they're wanting to understand what the key differences are here between these accounts.
Yeah, so the key difference between Roth and traditional IRAs is when you get your tax break. So in a traditional IRA, your contributions are tax-free and you won't pay taxes on the money until the time of your withdrawal of those funds. In a Roth IRA, it's the opposite. You'll pay taxes on your contributions into the account, but your withdrawals later on in retirement are going to be tax-free.
And I think it would be worth noting here that most 401ks are traditional 401ks. So they're not saying that they're traditional. We just kind of know them as 401ks, but they're really are either traditional 401ks or Roth 401ks. But if you've just heard of it as a 401k, it is likely that traditional version, that first thing Jackie talked about, where it's going in tax-free and you will pay taxes later. Whereas Roth, you are paying taxes now, you are not paying taxes later because you paid them first. And then with all of these tax advantage retirement accounts, what's so great is that your investments are growing tax-free. So that is why it's so important to take advantage of these accounts if you do have access to them.
A follow-up to that, I was told that possessing both Roth and traditional IRAs is advantageous. Is that true? Allegra, that might be one for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know plenty of women who have both, and that's because something we haven't talked about today is that Roth IRAs have an income threshold. You can only make up to a certain income to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA. If you are past that threshold, you would be contributing to a traditional IRA. So in some years, so maybe earlier on in your career when you're not hitting that income limit, it's nice to contribute to a Roth. When you do hit that income limit, you can contribute to a traditional. And then maybe there are years where you are working part-time because you're starting a family or you're going out of the workforce, or you're taking a sabbatical and you're not hitting that threshold again, you can go back to the Roth. And so really the thinking on having both is in the future, when you are allowed to withdraw from your retirement accounts, the age is 59 and a half to be able to start withdrawing without any penalties. Asterisk, asterisk, there are other reasons that you can withdraw that don't have penalties, but this is not a tax advantage retirement account session. We teach that in the Well Circle. Did I lose my train of thought? Oh, so the thinking is if you feel like you are going to be in a higher tax bracket in the future, then you want to be considerate of that now, because that is a strategy for being able to take out money tax-free because you've already paid tax on it now, or vice versa, people who plan to not be working and they're in a much lower tax bracket when they're pulling from their retirement accounts. That is why you would want to not pay taxes now and pay them later when the income taxes are going to be lower. Basically, Uncle Sam is always going to get his, so it is really nice to have options, and many, many women take advantage of having both of these accounts. But I just want to clarify that our IRA contribution limit, so the $6,500 for 2023 would be $6,500 that's including both accounts. Does that make sense? You can't contribute $6,500 to a Roth IRA and also $6,500 to a traditional IRA in the same year. If you're splitting it up, then the total is $6,500. I hope that wasn't confusing.
Awesome. That was great. Can you roll over multiple old 401k accounts?
Absolutely. Yep. You can roll over as many old 401k accounts as you have.
There's been a couple questions about pensions and people wanting to know if Capitalize is able to help with old pensions and getting them rolled over into something else.
Yeah, so generally you can roll over a pension into an IRA, although some pensions do have restrictions. And so I'd just say it can be nuanced, but we are able to help with pension into IRA.
Can you do a rollover into a SEP IRA? Does SEP count towards IRA contribution limits?
So I'm a little bit less familiar. So SEP IRAs are tax deferred growth on your investments, while Roth IRAs give you tax-free growth and withdrawals in retirement. So there is a distinction there, but you can do a rollover into a SEP IRA. Allegra, feel free to expand there if I did not do this question justice.
Yeah, so SEP IRAs are mostly used for people. They're called a simplified employee pension plan. So think of them as a good option for those who are self-employed. They can open SEP IRAs, and actually the contribution limits on those are different than regular IRAs, but that's more specific to business owners.
Cool. What kind of fees are typical inside the 401ks that we should be aware of?
So there are a few different fees that are charged. I am probably not the authority on the 401k since we spend a bit more time on the IRA, but Allegra, definitely chime in if you're more familiar.
It's like I said before, it's that your company is hiring a financial provider to administrate the 401k. So there is a fee for that, which is usually passed through to the employees. And then there are also fees for whatever investment selections you're making inside the 401k. So just as a reminder, if you have an employer-sponsored plan, a retirement plan, the employer's job is to let you know it exists and how to, get access to it and tell you if there's any sort of match. It's your responsibility to get it set up and choose the investments selections inside. So think of the account as the container and then what's inside the account that matters. So one of the worst things that I see all the time at Factora is that women have 401k accounts that they set up, but they never really picked the underlying selections or looked at them again if they did pick the first time. So they might be in just a money market, which is a cash equivalent, or they might be in something that is not working in their favor because it's not aligned with their risk profile and their investment goals. So when you have access to choosing your own investment selections, when you're not saying this is the 401k provider that has just these things that you can choose from and these are the fees associated with, that's where you can get the cost a lot lower. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. What if my old employer no longer exists? How can I find the company they use for 401ks?
That is another great question. So Capitalize can absolutely help track down those old 401ks based on just the name of that provider. Again, though, what I would do personally, what we would do here at Capitalize is you can search for those Form 5500s from when the company was still, existing and operating. That should be available to you in the Form 5500 database.
Great. A question about Capitalize. How secure is our information? I looked at a similar service and the first item they asked for is my social security number, so I didn't continue.
A very, very valid question and happy to chat through that. So we do ask for your social security number. If you decide to work with Capitalize, we'll ask for your social security number, date of birth, and a few other pieces of PII like your address, etc. We're only asking for information that's absolutely necessary to get a rollover done with you. So that's the pieces of information. If you do a rollover on your own, you'd also need to have available and provide to the 401k provider. That said, we take security extremely seriously. We are SOC 2 compliant, and in layman's terms, what that means is that we have attested that we have kind of the highest grade of security available to make sure that no one can, crack into our databases. We're doing everything we can to monitor that and make sure that our customers' information is secure. But I do definitely understand the hesitancy at first around giving your social security number online.
So Jackie, just to clarify, at any point in time, if you're rolling over an old retirement plan, you are giving your social security so that they can ensure it's yours?
That's right.
Okay. So you have to do it one way or another, whether you're doing it directly over the phone or if you're choosing a service online.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, I think we have time for another question or two. So I think this is important. Is there a tax penalty for moving a 401k into an IRA? I think this slide kind of shows where the taxes are, but if you can just talk through that one more time, Jackie.
Yeah, there's generally not a tax penalty when you're moving from one retirement account into another retirement account. The tax penalty that we call out on this slide in particular is around withdrawing funds from your retirement account early before the age of retirement, and doing that, definitely you'll be subject to taxes.
And then didn't you also follow up with, you need to make sure that you're moving from like account to like?
That's right. Yeah, thanks, Allegra. So if you are in a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k, you need to make sure that that IRA on the receiving end of your funds is labeled or has the same tax treatment. So a Roth 401k goes into a Roth IRA. Traditional 401k, which would just be called a 401k, would move into a traditional IRA. And to doing that, you avoid tax consequences there.
Great. One last question. How do you assess whether it's better to roll it over into a new employer-sponsored 401k or to leave it in an older one if the fees or structures are better? Or the other option could be here to roll it over into a rollover IRA.
Yeah, again, it's going to come down to kind of the fees, what you're comfortable paying, and the investment options. And so if you are comfortable with the fees in your old employer's old 401k, if they're better or more advantaged than the fees in your new employer's 401k, you absolutely may want to keep your 401k exactly where it is. You could also explore IRA providers. There's tons of providers out there. You can see them on the capitalized side, but you can also do your own research. There's so many types of providers in terms of what they invest in and their fee structure. And so I would definitely explore those and see if there's an option that's, again, from a fee perspective, more advantage to you than kind of the 401k plans that you're considering. But that's generally what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, I want to add two things there. One, a great comparison site that we always talk about where women can go and explore not just IRA accounts if they need to open that, but anything, a high yield savings account, different credit cards, robo-advisors. It's called nerdwallet.com. It's a great free comparison site where you can check out your options. But the other thing I would say is that a lot of women who are in the Well Circle, we give them an assignment to go and figure out the fees that are associated with their retirement accounts. And it is often very, very difficult to get this information, which is why a lot of women end up opting to roll it over into an IRA where they can be very clear on the fees and limit their exposure to fees, because the higher the fee, the more it eats into your potential returns.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions we have time for today. There was quite a lot. If you have more questions, you are welcome to email either Factora or Capitalize. I dropped those emails in the chat once more. Additionally, I did drop our link. If you are ready to do your rollover with Capitalize, you can click that link and get started. Allegra and Jackie, thank you both so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you being here. We hope this was helpful. And yeah, we'll see you at the next Factora event.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.